Hi, Marielle.
Hi, Anand.
How are you today?
I'm very fine, thank you. And what about you?
I'm doing fine. It's a sunny day here. How about there?
It's also sunny here. I think it must be around 20 degrees. And for us, that's very good at this time of the year.
Wow. Here's 29 degrees in our winter. So,
Yeah, it's a big difference.
yeah.
I know that.
Okay, so today my guest is Marielle Christiansen. She's a professor of OR at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. She is head of the Department of Industrial Economics and Technology Management with more than 230 employees. Her primary research interests concern development and implementation of optimization models and methods for industry-related planning problems as regards transportation, logistics, and production. She is particularly interested in applications where maritime transportation and supply chain challenges are considered and has been involved in a number of shipping industry sponsored projects. Her research within maritime transportation has resulted in numerous papers in journals like CNOR, EJOR, JARS, Naval Research and Logistics, Omega Networks TRC, as well as Transportation Science. Furthermore, she has contributed with several surveys within maritime transport optimization in general and within combined inventory management and routing, and fleet composition and routing in particular. Marielle has been involved in the organization of several international conferences such as Tristan, Euro, and Verilog. Marielle, thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
And
Looking forward to having this conversation with you.
thanks for the invitation, Anand. I feel honored and really exciting to be part of your podcast series. I have enjoyed listening to many of your episodes while walking with my dog, and he is very happy that the interviews last about an hour or even more. I would also say thank you very much for the initiative to start this podcast series. It's such a great way to capture the oral history of operations research. So now it's a pleasure for me to share my story.
Thank you very much for your kind words, Marielle. It means a lot to me. So let's start. Marielle, you were born in Norway in 1965. From which part of the country do you come from?
I'm from the southwestern part of the country, from a city called Stavanger. It's a coastal city surrounded by the sea, with the North Sea to the west, and a lot of islands to the north and east. For a long time, shipping, shipbuilding, and the fish canning industry were the main industries in Stavanger. But in 1969, just when I was 4 years, then everything changed. When oil was discovered in the North Sea and the production of oil and gas started in Norway. Stavanger, my home city, was picked to be the onshore hub for the oil industry in the Norwegian sector. Soon it became the oil capital of Norway. So during my childhood, the city grew rapidly with a lot of influence from the US coming in. Fortunately, Norway decided not just to depend on competences from abroad, but also building up the knowledge in Norway. I think and I hope I get an opportunity to talk more about that later on.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Mm.
You live in a place that is quite far up north. That's why I ask about the weather. How do you experience the seasons throughout the year, especially summer and winter?
The seasons in Norway vary a lot depending on where you live, since the country is so long from south to north. To give you an idea, if you could rotate Norway around its southern tip, you would end up on the French Riviera.
Wow.
So I live in Trondheim, which is right in the middle of Norway. Here, the summer days are really long. It never gets fully dark. You can sit outside at night and read a newspaper without needing a lamp. So I find that at summertime I need less sleep than at winter time. But in the darkest months, like in November, December, and January, we only get daylight from around 9 or 10 in the morning until 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So some people struggle with the lack of natural light and use special lamps that mimic daylight. For me, I don't think it's too difficult. My trick is to stay busy in November and not dwell on the darkness. And December is filled with Christmas preparations and parties. So it's a really happy time. And by January, the days gets longer again, which help a lot. In fact, I actually love winter, especially when there is snow. It really brightens everything up. Plus, I enjoy skiing and other outdoors activities during winter. So, in fact, many Norwegians actually stay just as active in the winter as in the summer.
Wow.
Mhm.
Here is completely the opposite. First of all, it never gets cold, and the variations in time with respect to sunset and sunrise are minimal throughout the year. It's hard for me to imagine, having all this lack of light during winter and the
Mhm.
possibility of reading a newspaper after midnight outside in your place. Just mind-boggling for me.
You should come and visit us.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I enjoy the seasons. Yeah.
Yeah. Possibly during summertime, not winter time. That would be very tough. Yeah, yeah, for me.
Yeah.
Right. Uh, so let's hear about your parents. Why don't you start by sharing a bit on your father?
Thanks for that question, Anand. I'm happy to share because my father has always been a big role model for me. He grew up in the countryside with his parents and 4 siblings. At the age of 13, he moved to Stavanger to become a tailor. So after finishing his training, he went to Sweden to take extra courses on repairing sewing machine, grading suits, and designing clothes. Once he got some experience as a tailor and suit grader, he was put in charge of production flow at a suit factory. Without realizing it, he was doing operations research, setting up production lines, scheduling, and all that. So, and later on, he started 2 companies that produced leather jackets, first with a former colleague and then on his own. He was a true entrepreneur with a passion for new projects and challenges. So we were really close, and he involved me in a lot of his big decisions about running the factories, for instance. He inspired me a lot and has definitely been my true role model.
Yeah, that's so nice to hear.
Mhm.
Could you tell me a little about your mother as well?
Yes, my mother, she grew up on a farm on an island close to Stavanger. She worked as a telegraph operator until I was about 7 or 8. She loved her work, but she decided to stay home with my brother and me until we were teenagers. After that, she joined my father in the leather jacket business. I'm really grateful that my mom was always there for me. When I got home from school, she was always listening to my stories about the day. And we have a great relationship, and I truly love her. No, it feels good to be able to give back, especially after my dad passed away last summer. Mm.
Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry to hear about that. But I'm glad your mom is still around.
Yeah.
Is it true that you were the first person named Marielle in Norway?
Mm, my father was really into sports. So he suggested naming me after the French alpine skier Marielle Guachel. Back then, Marielle wasn't listed as a legal name in Norway, so my parents had to apply to the authorities for permission to use it. I've heard I might have been the first person in Norway with that name. In Norway, especially in the countryside where my parents came from, it was common to name kids after their grandparents. My grandmother's name is Marie. So with the name Marielle, I was like Little Maria.
Ah,
Yeah.
is Christiansen your family name?
When I got married, I took my husband's last name, which was pretty common on that time. But even back then, some people kept their own family name or used both names. Nowadays, you can see all sorts of combinations in Norway. Some couples even create a new last name by combining both of their family names. Like if the man last name is Madsen and the woman's is Us, they might go for Madsen Us or Us Madsen. There's no rule about which name goes first. It just depends on what sounds better. The result, of course, is that many people end up with really long surnames. So I'm uncertain what will happen in the future.
Okay. Do you have siblings?
Yes, I have. I have a brother who is 4 years younger than me. And we had a lot of fun together as kids, even though we had an age difference. And these days, he lives in Stavanger with his family. But we spent a lot of time together when he was studying mechanical engineering at NTNU, the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And now we mostly get together in the summer since we both have cottages on the island where my mother grew up.
Right. It seems you got your first job at the age of 5. How did that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mentioned before that my dad worked at a factory making suits. In this factory, they used to collect leftover buttons every day and put them into big bags. So my job was to sort them into smaller bags. And I've heard that I was pretty good at it, using sorting methods to separate them into categories like big and small, dark and light, and so on, before putting them into small plastic bags. I love this job. And always got exciting whenever my dad came home with a big bag of buttons. And the pay when I visited the factory was a Coke from the factory's vending machine. And honestly, I couldn't have asked for anything better at that time.
Right. So at the age of 5, you already had the intuition of developing efficient algorithms. In that case, sorting algorithms. So that's very impressive.
Yeah.
What other roles or tasks did you take on at the factory in the following years?
Mm. It was only when my dad got his own factory that I really started helping out. So every Friday, my mom and I would clean the factory, but I also spent some of my holidays sewing buttons on jackets, making them ready for sale, writing letters on the typewriter, and I even picked up a yeah, a
Oh,
typing
yeah.
course, yeah, at secondary school, just to get faster at it for the factory. Back then, I didn't realize how useful that skill would turn out to be. Mastering the computer with quick hands.
Yes, I'm very impressed. All that experience you had at a very young age definitely helped you later on in your life, professional life especially. Yeah. You mentioned that your mother grew up on a farm. Did you ever have the chance to visit it?
Oh, yes. I spent a lot of my holidays at my grandparents' farm. And Christmas there was just magical. I can still remember the warm, special feeling with the snow and everything at Christmas time. They had animals like cows, lambs, and chickens, and they grew potatoes and strawberries. I spent most of my summers at the farm picking strawberries from when I was 7 until I was 17. And my best record was 282 half-kilo baskets in one day. Back then, the strawberries were smaller than they are now, so I must have been pretty quick. Perhaps optimizing. There were up to 30 of us picking strawberries at the farm. So it was really social and we had a lot of fun. We had even friendly competitions to see who could pick the fastest. And the pay, that was really pretty good too. So I was very happy with this summer job.
Wow, I can sense that you were able to develop so many skills while growing up, and many of them are related to OR and optimization, which is very amusing. Did you enjoy practicing sports?
Oh, yes. Until I was 12 or 13, I tried all sorts of sports, like handball, volleyball, gymnastics, and orienteering. I loved all of them. But as I got older and the training got more serious, I had to choose one. It's no surprise that I ended up with orienteering. Do you know that sport?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Boy Scout usually they practice that, right?
Yes, but I can give you a short introduction because
sure, absolutely, yeah.
not everyone knows that sport. So it's a sport where you use a map and a compass to navigate through unknown terrain, like mountains or forests, and you have to move as quickly as possible. At the start of the race, you get a map showing the points you need to visit. Then you have to figure out the fastest way to get between 2 points, and you have to decide whether to stick to the compass route or take a path or a road. So I think it's a fantastic sport because it mixes thinking using your head with running fast.
Yeah.
So it's close to optimization again.
Yeah. Did you ever have the chance to study the team orienteering problem or the orienteering problem?
No, I haven't, but I should have. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
have just done it in practice and not in theory.
Yeah. There's still time though for you
Yes, it
to
is.
study
Yes,
the
it
problem.
is.
Yes. Did you play any instruments and what type of music did you enjoy listening back to then?
Oh, yeah. I played both the piano and guitar, but to be honest, I was not really good in any of them. It was a bit of a nightmare for my brother whenever I practice, and if I wanted to annoy him even more, then I started singing while playing. So I'm pretty sure he was more relieved than I when I stopped taking lessons around 13, 14 years old. When it comes to music, I think I'm a better at listening than playing it. And at that time, I loved all kinds of music, very open-minded, from Simon and Garfunkel and The Clash to reggae with Bob Marley. So it was a good time.
Wow, very eclectic, I must say, because Simon Garfunkel, it's like this soft folk rock-like
Yeah,
type of
it is.
music, and then you go to the Clash, it's punk.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Yeah, very interesting too.
London Calling and yeah.
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 I suspect you were a very good student. Am I right?
I really enjoyed school, especially math and science. I was serious about my homework and pretty disciplined. My parents never pushed me. They just supported me. I was highly motivated and always curious about learning. So, yes, I was a pretty good student.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm.
I didn't expect anything different from that. Did you have the chance to travel around Europe or take part in any exchange program during high school? I'm asking this because several other European guests had a chance to travel around,
Yes.
at
Yeah.
the last year of high school or
Mm.
after finishing high school. And did you also have the chance to go around Europe?
I didn't travel much abroad during my first 15 years. But when I was 15, I did an exchange program where I stayed with a British family for 14 days. And then a girl from that family came to stay with my family for the next 14 days. And I really fell in love with England. Uh, so after high school, I went back as an au pair for a year. I stayed with a great family in East Sussex, and I learned a lot about the culture, the language, and so on. It was also, of course, a perfect way for me to improve my English.
Wow, so you lived in England for a full year.
Yeah, close to a full year, a school
Ye-
year. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's amazing. Marielle, yeah, you did great in math and science. Therefore, studying engineering at university seemed like the natural choice for you, right?
Yes. When I come back from England, I started studying marine technology at NTNU in Trondheim. Choosing NTNU was easy because it's really well regarded both in Norway and internationally for its engineering program. So, could I tell you a bit about NTNU?
Please.
Yes, fine. In 2010, NTNU celebrated its 100th anniversary, and a lot of the tech knowledge and expertise in Norway has come from NTNU. So back in the 70s, when oil production started in Norway, it was decided to build up our own engineering skills instead of just importing them, as I mentioned previously. NTNU played a key role in educating engineers and producing knowledge to build our modern society. So today, NTNU is the biggest university in Norway, and it still focuses heavily on technology, even though it offers a lot of study programs in other disciplines too. So now, back to your question. For me, growing up in Stavanger, where the marine or maritime sector is so important, choosing marine technology was a natural fit. During my first years, 2 years at NTNU, I worked at the shipping yard over the summer. And one of the managers there pointed out how important it was to combine marine technology with management and business economics. So, when I returned to the university in fall, I switched to an industrial engineering study program with the focus on marine technology.
Uh,
At NTNU, we call this program Industrial Economics and Technology Management, the same as the name of our department now. And for short, this study program is called INDUC in Norwegian, just for
right,
short. Yeah.
right, yeah. So you mentioned industrial engineering. When did you discover OR, and what made you fall in love with the discipline?
In my first year of industrial engineering or INDUC, I took a course in operations research. I've always been pretty structured and have a knack for optimization, always looking to get the best out of a challenge. So when I got into a course about optimization theory, mathematical models, and solution methods and algorithms, and not at least applying operations research when solving engineering problems, I was I think it was just fantastic, and I loved it. That was the love feeling.
Right. So you had OR classes in the first year.
Yes, I had one at the bachelor level, and then several, I think two more at the master level.
Okay. I can see that pursuing higher studies in OR came as a natural choice for you.
Mhm.
What did you study during your master's?
I did an integrated bachelor and master program, which is still common in many of our engineering programs. I took classes in marine technology, math, management, business, economics, and of course, operations research. And for my master's thesis, I worked on a well management problem for Phillips Petroleum. I developed and implemented an optimization model to decide which wells to produce from and when to shut down each day, taking into account contracts and technology. And each of these wells have a different production potential and chemical composition. It was fantastic to work on this real problem. And my research on that can be found in EJUR.
Yeah, so you got the publication out of your master's work.
I did. I
Very
did.
nice.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
well
And
done.
of course, at that time, that was fantastic.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, the pressure for publishing papers was not as intense as today, right? And
Yes, yes.
and being able to obtain a nice publication as you did was an important achievement for sure.
Yeah. I
Um,
think the motivation come from me. Yeah. I
yeah,
wanted to take the challenge.
yeah, very impressive. And what came after your master's?
I started out as a researcher at SINTEF. SINTEF is a big independent research organization that does contract research and development projects. And SINTEF cooperates closely with NTNU, so it was a great place to be. I got involved in a really interesting OR project focused on developing a decision support system for investment planning in petroleum fields in the North Sea. The system that was built on a mixed integer programming model and was actually used by the Norwegian Petroleum Directorate and several oil companies working on the continental shelf of Norway. We even organized and ran courses on how to use the system for planners in these companies. And I think it was amazing to see OR being used in practice at that time. Uh, and in fact, the model has been continuously improved since I left SINTEF, and it's in use today, still in use today. And we also published a paper on it, and you can find it in Annals of Operations Research.
So before starting the PhD, you already had submitted two papers for publication in good journals. And it's great that you have the opportunity to witness your ideas and work being deployed in practice at a time. Not many people have the chance to see their work being applied. And in your case, it should have left a tremendous impact on you, I suspect, because you get the motivation to keep on studying OR and thinking about models and algorithms, because you know that's not necessarily going to be just publishing a paper and that's it. You actually saw the result of your work being used, and that you should have been really rewarding, right?
Yes, I fully agree. I think I have been very lucky that I have been able to see operations research in practice at an early stage in my career. And I think that we are in a special situation in Norway. Norway is a small country, and in Norway we have to stay together. We have to work together. So I think that it's easier in a small country to get in touch and cooperate with the industry, within the public sector, and so on, than in many other countries. There is a more open dialogue between university, industry,
Research centers.
business, and public sector.
Right. Yeah, that's very nice to hear. And I hope other countries get inspired by Norway and, think of ways to join forces and decrease the gap between academia and the industry, right? Did you already have plans to do a PhD, or did some particular event trigger your desire to do so?
I wasn't planning on doing a PhD, but my master supervisor, Bjørn Nygren, he was. So he encouraged me to apply for a PhD position that was funded by the university. I was eager to learn more, so I saw it as a great opportunity to build up my skills and knowledge in the field, plus getting well paid to focus on developing my expertise and doing interesting research. I think that sounded amazing. And in addition, if I wanted to continue my career as a researcher in SINTEF, it was pretty much expected that I go for a PhD.
Mm-hmm. Yes, some PhD programs in Europe do not require the candidate to do coursework or anything like that. In your case, did you attend any courses during your PhD?
Yes. When I did my PhD, we had to take courses corresponding to 60 ECTS credits. So I took a lot of courses, especially in mathematics, microeconomics, shipping economics, petroleum economics, and of course operations research. And in one of those courses, called discrete optimization, I was the only student, and Bjørn Nygren was the lecturer. So instead of the usual lectures, we read and discussed the integer and combinatorial optimization book by George Nemhauser and Laurence Wolsey. I found the book really interesting, and I loved our discussions. I never would have guessed back then that I'd ended up working with Laurence.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say, because I know you have a couple of papers with him. So you read my mind and made a comment in advance. So that's incredible, right? You're reading the book of someone that it seems like a decent person, and years later you have the chance to collaborate with that person. This is just amazing.
Yeah.
What was the process of choosing your PhD topic like?
I wanted to work on a problem related to my technology specialization. And Bjørn Nygren connected me with Norsk Hydro, now Yara, which had a really challenging maritime transportation problem. It involved transportation ammonia at sea by a fleet of ships, while also managing inventories near the ports where ammonia was produced or consumed. I thought it was an amazing problem, and I was excited to work on something real again. Little did I know how tough it would be. There was no existing literature on the maritime inventory routing problem, so I had to define the problem myself. I spent a lot of time just modeling it, figuring out what to include and what to leave out to create a model that could actually make good decisions. I used small toy examples to understand the problem structure, and even had to come up with names for variables and parameters because they didn't exist in the literature.
Right.
So when it comes, say something about the notation, because that was a problem. And there I was inspired by the notation of Martin Biel. If you check out some of my work, you'll see still his influence, where he suggested to use lowercase letters for variables and indices and capital letters for parameters and sets. When you're dealing with real problems, that have a lot of different variables and parameters, the way you handle notation is important. So for me, this notation has been super helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, notation is really an issue in our field. At times, the paper can be really complicated to understand, and to come up with something that is neat, clear, it's very challenging. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and the problem you are referring to seems very challenging. How did you approach it?
As I told you, I had been working on the problem, formulating a MIP model and solving it with small data sets. And when I had got a good grasp on the problem structure, I knew it was time to think of an solution, appropriate solution methods, to be able to solve real instances of the problem. So then I have a story. In August 1991, I went to the Mathematical Programming Symposium in Amsterdam with Björn, my supervisor. And during the conference dinner, he pointed out a table with a free chair and told me, sit there. I said, okay. And I thought, sure, why not? And the atmosphere at the table, that was great. And we even had some fun hiding bottles under the table. And the person next to me was really interested in my maritime inventory routing problem. And I started talking about it with a lot of enthusiasm. And this person was Jacques Desrosiers from Montreal. So we set up a meeting for the next day with my supervisor to discuss the problem and promising solution methods. So after our discussion and meeting, I was completely sold on the column generation approach. I ended up reading drafts of the chapter Time Constrained Routing and Scheduling in the Handbook of Operations Research and Management Science, where Jacques is one of the authors. And I read this over and over again. We had also some great discussions about my solution methods during a research course in northern Norway in, I think it was 1993. June 1993, yes. And that really inspired me to develop my column generation approach with subproblems for the routing of the ships and also subproblems for managing the inventories at the ports.
Wow, that's a very interesting story. Jacques Desrosiers and other authors, including subject to guest Marco Lubeck, they just have published a column generation book, right?
Yes, that is right. And in a way, they have the same atmosphere in the book as in this chapter, with a lot of funny pictures. And yeah, that is refreshing.
Yeah. I see.
Yeah, and it, of course, it's a really, really good book.
Did you receive enough support from your advisor during your PhD, or did you work mostly on your own?
I got amazing support from my supervisor, Björn Nygren. He was almost always available for a good discussion, and I'm really, really grateful for the collaboration we had during my PhD, but also later in my career. Honestly, I don't think I have ever chosen an academic career if it wasn't for Björn.
Wow, so he was a true inspiration for you.
Yes.
And that's how advisors should be, right?
Yes. So that is another role model for me.
That's fantastic. Were you already married at that time?
I got married in August 1992. But I actually met my husband for the first time when I was 15 during the exchange program in England. He has been like a safe haven for me ever since, always supporting and encouraging me to take on new opportunities and challenges. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yes, so you had great parents, you have a great husband, great kids, great advisor. You couldn't ask for more, right?
No, it's true.
Yeah. Marielle, many well-known European researchers from your generation attended Euro summer schools, or as often they refer to, Euro Summer Institute, uh, and they are nearly unanimous about the impact such events had on their academic networks. Do you feel the same?
Yes. I went to the Euro Summer School in Cetraro, Italy, back in 1991, and that was for 3 weeks. So we were stuck together for 3 weeks, and I can't remember that I even went to a shop during those 3 weeks. The theme of this Euro Summer School was urban traffic management, which wasn't my area of expertise. But it was amazing to learn from well-known researchers like Paolo Todd, Gracia Speranza, Jamie Barcelo, Marcus Papagorgiou, and many, many others. I also met some wonderful people there who are still good friends today. And it's so great to catch up with them at conferences like Shoshana Anneli, Anna Payas, Michael Patrickson, and Daniel Levigo. All of them were there. So it's clear that these PhD schools are so important for learning, staying motivating, and not at least building a network. And in fact, I was involved in organizing a Nordic PhD school in Bornholm Island, belonging to Denmark, with Jesper Larsen and Mikael Rønqvist in 2001. And not only did it achieve those goals, but it also led to a marriage and several kids between two of the participants some years later. So you never know what you can achieve from those schools.
Wow.
Yeah.
Matchmaking then.
Yes, yes, it can be.
Yeah, that's very amusing. You mentioned Paulo Todd, Gracia Esperanza. I had the chance to interview both of them. And I was also very happy that I could take a picture with you and Gracia in Copenhagen now recently. So
It was a pleasure for me.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm short, so it was fun to have the both of you giants literally next to me. So that's a very
Uh,
good memory. Um, Marielle, 1994 was quite an intense year for you, right?
yes, yes, it was. In January that year, I got a permanent position as an assistant professor at NTNU. And hadn't defended my thesis then, and I had a grant, a PhD grant. So I ended my PhD grant early. It was really tough trying to juggle teaching, finishing my PhD and research, and also having my first daughter, who was born on my birthday, 20th of April. I stayed home with her for 8 months. And then my husband took over for 4 months. At that time, it was not common that the dead spent so much time at home with their baby. But for us, that made a big difference. And I can still see how close they are because of the time that they spent together early in her life.
And when did you finally finish your PhD?
I defended my thesis in 1996, so it took some years. I think it was really challenging balancing teaching, finishing up my PhD research, and having a baby. So I was thrilled to have a successful defense. On top of that, I actually won an award for the best applied research thesis at NTNU that year. And of course, that was a fantastic bonus for me.
Yes.
Mm.
Well done again. And
Yeah, thanks.
you mentioned that you had to juggle across so many things. And it's where your husband played an important role there, right? In
Yes,
helping you
yes,
during the
yeah.
process. Marielle, I know you had published a couple of papers by then, but I know that you put a lot of effort when it comes to writing. How did you learn to write papers for real?
Mhm. First of all, I have to say that I really enjoy writing papers. So, and I think that started early. So during my PhD, I worked on turning my monograph because we were writing a monograph at that time for a PhD. So I was turning my monograph into 3 papers. Uh, and to improve my writing skills, I took a scientific writing course by an American professor who was at the sabbatical at NTNU at that time. And I think that is one of the best and most useful courses I have ever taken. Um, but I was also really inspired by the chapter by Desrosiers et al. In the handbook, and as many others by Gilbert Laporte's papers. So I have read many of them in detail and tried to copy the way he is writing. Uh, plus, my supervisor gave me detailed feedback that was incredibly helpful. I have also to say that I got great advice and support from colleagues like Professor Stein Wollers. He worked at NTNU at that time. So I really tried to learn from the best ones.
Mm-hmm. I was influenced by Professor Gilbert Laporte myself. He's just a gifted person when it comes to writing papers.
Mm.
And I never imagined that I would be able to collaborate with him in a couple of papers years after.
Yeah.
So it was amazing. And seeing him in action is just a treat, right?
Yeah, neither did I think that. So,
Uh-huh.
and that has been just fantastic.
Fantastic. Yes, I agree. Maria, you were well known for your extensive work on maritime transportation. Could you comment on the main classes of problems in this field that you and your colleagues have proposed over the years?
Oh, that is a big question. It's tough to answer, but I will have a try. We usually distinguish between 3 modes of maritime transportation: industrial, tramp, and liner shipping. So in industrial shipping, the cargo owner controls the fleet and aims to transport its own cargo at minimum costs. And in tramp shipping, the vessels follow the cargoes and operate more like taxis. The ship go wherever the cargoes are available, and the operator tries to pick the most profitable cargoes while fulfilling any contract they have. And then it comes to liner shipping, which is mostly container shipping. And that works similar to bus service and follow given routes according to a published schedule. So then it comes to our research. We have worked on problems for all these 3 transportation modes, but most of our work has been with industrial and tramp shipping. In Norway, which is known for its raw material production, bulk ships have most of the cargo. So our problems are usually in the industrial and tramp categories. So we have extended the basic ship routing and scheduling problem with complex issues like flexible cargoes, split loads, speed optimization, allocation of cargoes on board the ship. We have included uncertainty issues and much more. Typically, we start our research projects with a real world problem from the shipping industry. Sometimes these problems lead us to new classes of problems, like the maritime inventory routing problem that I have talked about. But another one, the LNG maritime inventory routing problem, and for instance, the traveling salesman problem with draft limits, which I know that you have also been working on. So by working on all these real problems, we have discovered new research challenges and developed new models and solution methods. I also have to say that many international researchers have been attracted by our access to real problems. And I'm so grateful and happy for all the international collaboration. I think it has been also very good to be invited into many interesting international research projects working with both PhD students and professors.
Yeah, your work has been incredibly influential in our community. I myself was influenced by your work when I saw your presentation in Spain in 2011 about the traveling salesman problem with draft limits, as you mentioned. And then I think months later, I invited Maria Batarra, and she was the one who handed the mug that you were using today.
Yes, I have the mug here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was there, right? Recently for a defense. And then I invited her to collaborate in this project and trying to propose an exact approach to the TSP with draft limits. And at the time we invited Eduardo Shoa and Arthur Pessoa, who are experts in column generation and also branch cut and price algorithms. So we were able to come up with a nice EJAR paper out of that. And by the way, Eduardo Shoa, Arthur Pessoa, and also Laurence, the three of them, they have published a column generation book very recently too. So I highly recommend that reference.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic to see such good papers that you have written based on a problem that we introduced to the literature. And that feels good, that you can see that more research comes out of the research that we have started. It's a very good paper you have there.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's a great feeling to have your work recognized, especially when you propose a problem. And in that case, I find that problem just so good because its definition is extremely simple, but it adds a lot of difficulty when it comes to solving it. It seems like just one constraint on the capacity, right, on a report, but that can create a lot of infeasible solutions. And it creates a lot of challenge. And I mean, I love that problem to this day. Yeah.
And in fact, this problem is just a sub-problem of a larger real problem
that
we were working on.
Right. Do you have any preferences when it comes to solution methods? In other words, do you have a favorite tool, or do you choose the method according to the scenario?
Generally, I'm driven by using the best methods, the best solution methods for the underlying real problem. But to be honest, I'm most interested in exact methods. However, to tackle real world issues, I have had to dive into heuristics or math heuristics. I have actually enjoyed that quite a bit, especially with all the math heuristic research in the latest decades. It has been fantastic to embed exact methods into heuristic and vice versa to find good solutions.
Yes, yeah. I understand what you're saying. At times, we cannot employ exact algorithms because, as we know, it can be really complicated to solve real-life problems or instances of larger size. But at the same time, it's possible to devise interesting heuristic and even math heuristic methods, as you mentioned, trying to combine both worlds, from having ideas that are based on the experience of the practitioner at times, and when you think about heuristics too, and also coming up with some more formal techniques and math-based algorithms. I think it's a very good combination at times. It seems that you have an obsession with finding strong formulations.
I suppose that if the students make jokes about me, it must be something about my focus in the teaching on strong formulations. Therefore, I have enjoyed the cooperation with Agostino Agra and others from Aveiro a lot. So here we also come to Laurence Wolsey. So in two of the papers, I got this honor to cooperate with Laurence Wolsey, which I have told you is a hero from my days as a PhD student. So Agostino Agra, Laurence Wolsey, and me, we have been working on these two papers. We have developed many different types of models and valid inequalities for several maritime inventory routing problems. And for one of them, we actually got the Glover Klingman Prize for the best published paper in networks in 2013. So I think it has been fantastic to also do more theoretical work inspired from real maritime transportation problems.
I can only imagine the feeling you had collaborating with such a legend.
Yeah.
I mean,
And what amazed me with Laurence Wolsey is that he is very into the detail, also when it comes to programming. So he is programming himself. So,
wow,
so that, yeah. So,
incredible.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Marielle, you have written important surveys on maritime transportation, which includes ship routing and scheduling, as well as other related problems. Did you expect them to be so popular, and how have they influenced your career?
Oh, At the beginning of this century, maritime transportation wasn't very well known in operations research compared to other types of transportation. Even though the pioneer David Ronan had written a couple of surveys article back in 1983 and 1993. So around 2000, my good friend and colleague Kjetil Fagerholt and I decided to write the next review article and aimed to get it published 10 years later in 2003. So we sent our paper to Transportation Science in 2002 and got a detailed review back, which included a lot of extra references from one of the reviewers that we had been missing. We were so impressed by the review that we decided to invite the reviewer to become co-author with us. Gilbert Laporte, who was the editor-in-chief at that time, helped us make that happen. That is how David Ronan ended up as the third author on our survey, and he also joined us for another survey we published in 2013. So 10 years later. And I think it was an amazing collaboration. David visited us in Trondheim and we visited him in St. Louis. Then around, I think it was early 2003, I got a phone call from Gilbert Laporte. He invited me to write a chapter for a volume in Handbooks in Operations Research and Management Science on Transportation. I was thrilled and honored by the invitation. So Kjetil Fagerholt, Bjørn Nygren, David Ronan, and I ended up writing a 100-page chapter for the book. And this chapter, along with our review articles, opened many doors for us. We have been invited to give tutorials, keynotes, plenary talks on maritime transportation, and have been invited in various research projects and been also contacted by the industry. So right now, Kjetil Fagerholt, David Piesinger, and I are working on a 50-year history of maritime transportation for the European Journal of Transportation and Logistics. It's great cooperated with two such clever persons.
Yes, yes, and of course, I had a chance to interview David Pissinger.
Yes.
I still haven't collaborated with him, but he's one of my heroes.
Oh, I
Uh,
have. In
yeah,
fact, I have another review article on liner shipping with him in
yeah,
Eager some years ago. yeah, it's fantastic cooperating with David. He is always so positive, and yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he was also visiting Trondheim last week, together
Yes.
with Maria Battera. Mm.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
sent me this very nice picture of the three of you together. I was very happy to see that. And that story you mentioned of inviting a reviewer to be a co-author, that's very impressive. Usually we tend to get upset at the reviewers or
Yes.
blame them and all of that. But in your case, you were so thankful for his collaboration that I'm glad that it was possible to arrange for him to be a co-author.
Mm. Mm.
And you can see how this process can be more productive rather
Mm.
than just stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. You are right. But you say that about the reviewers that they are critical and so on. But I also think that many reviewers do a marvelous job. So I think many of my papers have been improved due to the comments from the reviewers. But of course, that's not always the case. Uh,
Yeah, that's like in life, right?
yes,
We,
yes,
we, we have a mixed
yeah.
type of experiences. I think we should motivate the youngsters, especially, to be careful when
Mm,
writing reviews and try to be more positive and provide constructive comments rather than just criticizing and not helping the authors to improve their work, even though at times we are forced to reject a paper that's just not good enough or suitable for a particular journal. But some advice and some
mm,
constructive
mm,
comments are, I think, important to
yeah.
give authors a perspective on how to improve their work, right?
Yeah, I fully agree.
hmm Could you mention some open research questions related to maritime transportation in the context of OR that you think are important?
Mm. From an operations research perspective, we have made great advancements in models, solution methods, and technology that improve efficiency with fewer resources. However, the maritime industry has been conservative and slow to adapt automated planning compared to other fields, like in the airline industry, railway, and so on. So there is still a significant gap between theory and practice, and we need a new collaboration methods to bridge this. That's for sure. The shipping industry is undergoing major changes. So, with this aim for a 50% cut in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, new sustainable fuels might require different routes and refuel stations. You have also the autonomous vessels. They could also enable more frequent, shorter routes. We have climate change may open new passages, but could worsen weather conditions. Additionally, with more production moving closer, decreased globalization. So production moving closer to the customers due to political and environmental reasons, we might see also a shift towards short distance transport with smaller, flexible vessels. We also have new sectors like offshore wind and solar energy, and these sectors will introduce new planning challenges. Future shipping will likely see diverse technologies and vessel types, requiring strategic decision tools to manage risks. Energy costs and supply issues will also play a role, and shipping might adapt more easily to new energy types compared to other transportation modes. And with a still uncertain world situation and several ongoing conflicts, security will play a major role in forming future shipping. This includes both security of supply, but also safety in ports and ship routes. So with this transition in maritime sector, we will see new research trends in operations research. So since uncertainty and risks are always part of maritime transportation, we need better models to handle these challenges. We also need models that can predict how the market will react to new regulations, which would help guide policymakers. And to make sustainability goals, we should consider vessels, ports, and land transport together. Unified and weakly coupled model could be useful here. So optimization models and methods can support the development of the shipping industry, which are facing many of these mentioned future challenges. For instance, we need new model for different fuel types, refuel options, and overall planning. So this is just a few challenges in maritime transportation. So if you are on the lookout for new OR opportunity, there's a whole ocean of them out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of opportunities, and thank you so much for providing these insightful research directions to our community. I'm sure that there will be a lot of interesting papers and also applied work coming from you and other people in the maritime logistics community in the next years. In the last years, you have turned your research attention to healthcare projects. Could you please elaborate more on that?
Yes, I can. Then we have to go back to 2016. Then Operations Research Group started a close cooperation with a hospital in Trondheim. And since then, we have had several PhD students, a postdoc, and professor working part-time at the hospital. But we have also had a medical doctor working part-time with us. So this setup with a team of researchers has allowed us to tackle real issues the healthcare sector faces now. And personally, I have worked on projects like nurse scheduling, a classical but still a difficult problem, and especially to implement it into the use in the hospital. MRI scheduling, and I have also worked on a project for a strategic ambulance location. And I think it's great when operations research tools contribute to a better use of resources in such an important sector for our society. So I have been happy to contribute.
Yeah, I fully agree. We ourselves are trying to move into that direction as well. There are so many opportunities in the healthcare sector, just waiting to be unraveled and addressed. And I hope we ourselves can be as successful as you were recently in addressing these problems. So, Marielle, one thing that I noticed is that the Norwegian OR Society is relatively young. It was formally created in 2014. Why is that the case?
Yes, it's true that NORS, or the Norwegian Operations Research Society, has officially existed since 2014. But the Norwegian OR community has actually been active for much longer, going back to the 1970s. The need for NOS became clear when the previous Society for Operations Research in Norway shifted its focus to computer science, leaving OR community without a dedicated organization. This gap became a real issue when I was the program chair for the Euro meeting in Vilnius, and Stein Wallace was on the program committee. Both of us in the program committee, but neither of us were member of any Euro societies. So that was when Gerhard Wäscher, who was the president-elect of Euro at that time, stepped in to help. So together with Geir Hasle, Stein Wallace and myself, we worked to establish NORS. So in a way, I'm proud to say I'm one of the founding members. Today we have 140 members.
Yes, I'm not surprised that you were involved in the creation of the society. And you mentioned that conference, the Euro conference. How was the experience of being program chair of the Euro 2012 conference?
Yeah, I was truly honored to be asked to be the program chair for Euro 2012 in Vilnius. It was definitely the most challenging conference management task I've ever taken on, with over 500 sessions and nearly 2,000 presentations and participants from almost 70 countries. Despite the challenges, I have just great memories from both the planning phase and the conference itself. I had the pleasure of working with an amazing team, including Sarah Forrest, Willy Weber, Gerhard Wescher, Mark Savour, Bernard Forts, and so on. And working closely on a big project like this creates a special bond. And it was really rewarding to give back to the community that has given me so much. So being part of the OR community has been such a joy. It's been incredibly fulfilling to be involved in various conferences, whether as a member or as a chair. And many of the people I've met through these events, they are friends, have become friends of mine. So it's always fantastic to catch up with them.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. I can see that, but it requires a lot of responsibility. I think I would go mental if I become involved in some type of activity like that. And you had lunch with two of the most important historical figures in our field. Could you share your memories from those two meetings?
Yes, sure. One memorable moment was during the optimization days in Montreal in 2005, where I attended a lunch for all the plenary and tutorial speakers. I was sitting next to John Nash, the Nobel Prize winner, known for his work in game theory and the inspiration behind the movie A Beautiful Mind. I was pretty starstruck, but we had a great conversation. For instance, he was well informed about our royal family in Norway and asked questions about the Norwegian people's view on the crown prince marrying a woman who was already a mother. We even chatted about beer quality from different countries and so on. Another highlight for me was when I invited Ralph Gomory, famous for his Gomory cutting plane method, to be a plenary speaker at the Euro conference in 2012. I was thrilled when he accepted my invitation. And before the conference kickoff, I had the pleasure of hosting him and his wife for dinner. We had a wonderful evening talking more about our families and life than about his incredible achievements. He is such a warm and lovely person, and I still cherish the great memories from that evening.
Wow, I wish I had a chance to meet
Yes.
these legends. I mentioned you had lunch with the two of them, but you actually had lunch with John Nash and dinner with Ralph Gomory. Not bad. How do you feel about balancing your research with teaching responsibilities?
Ah, Thanks for asking this question, Anand. You know, I'm passionate about research, but I've also always loved teaching. For me, my teaching duties have been holy or non-negotiable. So when my daughters were young, my husband and I made a deal. If one of my daughters got sick on a day I had to teach, he'd stay home with them. And on other days, I would. Because of that arrangement, I can't remember ever cancelling a lecture. I really believe in the importance of connecting education with research. University teaching should be research based, and I found that having a strong research background has been incredibly helpful in the classroom. It's also great that many of our master students are so talented. They often contribute a lot to our research projects. So a good balance is important.
Yeah, I also agree with you that experience of being involved in research can help a lot with teaching. It forces us to stay up to date and also helps us with this, perspective of transferring knowledge, not necessarily about the technical content, but putting that into a context that might be more engaging and more clear to the students. I'm not sure if you share this perception,
Yes,
but
yes, I fully agree.
yeah. Marielle, it's clear to me that you're a great leader. You were head of research in your department for 8 years, and you have been department head for 7.5 years. What motivates you to take on these roles, which come with numerous challenges such as managing conflicts and dealing with frustrated colleagues?
Yes, I have been the head of research in our department for 8 years, and I was the first person to hold this position. Since there were no previous role like this, I had the chance to shape it pretty much how I wanted. We set up a research strategy with clear goals for the department, career support, guidelines, and an incentive system. I was also responsible for all our PhD students, meeting with them, and had these appraisal interviews every year. I think that was such a rewarding position. I really enjoyed that. And then it was quite easy to combine that position with my research. Currently, I've been the head of departments, as you said, for 7.5 years, managing 230 employees from over 30 countries. It's a huge and challenging role. So here it's very hard to combine with research. It takes all my time. But to manage effectively, it's crucial to have a strong management team. So you can delegate tasks and responsibility. I think delegating is also important for grooming the next generation of leaders. Plus, I believe we make much better decisions when we work together rather than alone. In addition, it's much more fun. So you talked about this with handling conflicts.
Yeah.
And I think there, transparency is key. The employees need to understand the reasons behind decisions, and we need solid processes that involve them in important decisions. If you sense a conflict brewing, it's important to address it early before it escalates. So, good communication is essential. At least that has been important for me in my management positions. So then you come back to the motivation. I have a strong background in teaching and education. I know the university system well, and this experience has been valuable for supporting my employees in develop their careers. While I can't personally assist all 230 employees, I focus primarily on the associate professors and professors. For instance, I really enjoy supporting them in their promotion processes. So this support part of the management job means a lot to me. And of course, contributing to the success and development of the department that creates lasting values for society is also incredibly rewarding. Also, strategic thinking is particularly fascinating to me. With my background in operation research, I have a passion for planning and goal setting. In management, plans are crucial for aligning an organization and driving it towards common goals. But since the conditions and environment can change, it's important to be able to adjust plans as needed. And I believe this ability to adapt while following established plans will be increasingly important for future management. So, my background in operations research definitely adds value to my role as a leader, and that is a motivation in itself.
It's amazing to hear all of that. It's clear that you have a passion for what you do. I think being supportive is an important ability, an important characteristic of a leader. And I'm really glad that you pay attention to that. Not only that, I mean, you were inspiring a bunch of people to be, motivated and also to be good leaders in the future themselves.
Mm.
So good leadership also inspire other people to be leaders as well.
Yes.
Otherwise, they might see that something
Yeah.
super challenging and complicated. But when you as a leader make it sound more approachable or make it sound more fun, that would inspire a lot of people to follow that path as well.
Mm.
And also related to that, Marielle, how does the funding system work in Norwegian universities?
Yeah. Students from Norway and the EU don't have to pay for their education at Norwegian University. So we don't make any money from student fees from those students. Instead, our main funding comes from the government. The funding model is mainly based on how many ECTS credits our bachelor and master students earn and the number of PhD students who graduate. In the past, we also received funding based on publications and external research activity, but that has disappeared. Now we have to rely more on external funding from research council and industry, and the competition there is tough. On top of that, changing the funding model, but on top of that, our government funding is expected to decrease in the coming years. Like many other countries, Norway is now prioritizing the defense sector due to the changing security situation in the world. So, given these challenges and changes that we see, we need to adapt and rethink how we run our university, faculties, and departments. We have started this process and need to be more strategic in our priorities.
Right. Marielle, now switching topics, do you have any relevant insights or experiences to share regarding gender issues?
Thanks so much for bringing up this, Anand. Gender equality is such an important issue in society, especially in the university sector where it impacts access to education and job opportunities in academia. It's crucial that women and men have equal rights regardless of gender. That is for sure. As a society, we need to tap into the full potential of everyone, not just half of the population, when it comes to recruiting the best brains. So I have been particularly focused on increasing the number of women in our engineering study programs so that these students, they are prepared when we develop new technology. It's vital to have diverse perspectives at the table, the perspectives from both men and women. So, in my role as head of department, I have been especially mindful of gender issues, particularly when hiring new faculty. Professors are role models for students, and students must meet both male and female professors. So we are making various efforts to achieve a good gender balance between women and men, both among employees at the department as well as for our students. The Nordic countries generally have a high level of gender equality, and the conditions for having a career is good for both women and men. For instance, in Norway, Parents get nearly a year of paid maternity leave, with 15 weeks reserved for the mother and 15 for the father, and the rest can be shared. So if the father doesn't take his 15 weeks, the couple loses these weeks. However, we have work to do in terms of gender equality in careers, politics, sports, and other areas. Personally, I can't say I've ever been discriminated against because of my gender. I've always been treated with respect by both women and men, and I'm really grateful for that. But I do have some funny story from high school. My physics teacher used to call all the boys by their last name, surname, like Hansen or Fredrickson, but called the girls by their first name. So I was just Marielle, and I always thought that was a bit odd. I also remember when I was pregnant, a foreign colleague told me it was a shame because I was talented, implying that my career would suffer or even end. I was shocked by this statement. No one in Norway would have said something like that. It really highlighted the cultural differences around the world. So we need to keep working on the gender issues. And I'm so grateful for all the good work happening in our society to improve the gender balance and enhance the conditions and opportunities for women in OR. So a lot of good work is going on.
Yeah, I agree. And to improve the gender balance, we need role models, and you are certainly one of them. Is there anything you would still like to do in your career that you haven't had the opportunity to try yet?
Ah, that's an exciting question, Anand. Um, I've been head of department for almost 8 years now, so I think it's about time to bring in some fresh leadership to keep things moving forward. I do enjoy new challenges within management, so I would be open to taking on new management roles, for instance, at the faculty level. On the other I would also love to have more time for research. A sabbatical would be amazing. I would really like to spend some time abroad, maybe for 6 months or a year. Going back to England after all those years would be fantastic. As I told you, I recently met Maria Battera, your first interview object, when she was visiting us. And I would love to visit her in Bath. Or maybe I could come visiting you and your fantastic research group in Brazil. So in general, I love traveling, meeting new people, and working together on projects. So a sabbatical is definitely something I'm looking forward to as I head into the later parts of my career.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm happy to hear that you're considering visiting us in the
Oh,
future.
yeah.
So it will be amazing to have you here, and you can enjoy our wonderful weather uh, at some point. Marielle, any final thoughts for our viewers and listeners?
Oh, there's a lot to say. So perhaps I should just focus on three main points.
Okay.
First, at NTNU, we have a vision that I really appreciate: knowledge for a better world. It's been a guiding principle for us, aiming to create a better society and world. In addition, I think it fits perfectly with what we do in operations research. Second, as I mentioned previously, the shipping industry is going through a period of transition, which means there are still many open research questions. This is a great opportunity for the operations research community to make a difference, OR for the science of better, or OR for a better world. And finally, cooperation has been crucial for me. I could never have achieved my research results alone. Not at all. Working in teams is not only more enjoyable, but also more rewarding. So I am incredibly grateful for all the amazing collaboration I have had, both nationally and internationally. So my final advice is to search for new collaboration and strengthening the existing ones.
Yes, yes. Like you like to develop strong mathematical formulations, developing strong bonds with people has been instrumental in your career. Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
Marielle, for this great piece of advice. You have a wonderful story. I mean, there are still chapters that remain to be written in the future, but I think you should consider writing your memoirs sometime. And as you like to write, that can be an interesting experience for you, and maybe you can start doing that during your an eventual sabbatical period. Who knows? But anyway, it has been great to have you here. I had a wonderful time, and I hope you also enjoyed our conversation.
Yes, I did. And thanks again for the invitation. It has been a great and new experience for me.
Yes. So, I mean, it was fantastic to meet you after 13 years recently in Copenhagen. And I hope we can meet each other soon this time, and not waiting that long to meet again.
Yes, we
So I
must.
wish you all the best, Marielle, and stay healthy. And I'm sure you're going to still be very active and productive in the years to come. Thanks once again, and
Yeah.
bye. Ciao.
Bye bye, and thank you so much.
Ciao.
Ciao.